Hello everyone and welcome back to another movie review. I'm your host Ian from EonTalk, and this time around we'll be looking at Jesters, the Game Changers.
이놈들은 전국 장마당을 떠도는 광대패거리입니다. 속칭 공갈팽이죠.
The Jesters are a group of 5 people that starts and spreads rumors around Chosun to accomplish their goals. One day, they receive an order from one of King Sejong's men to create trust and loyalty for the king. Side note, King Sejong was a king that killed his own nephew to take the throne. The Jesters don't have a choice but to take on this mission, and they risk their lives to accomplish the wishes of the royalty.
자, 이거 던져갖고 딱 쓰면 하는 걸로. 안 쓰면 나도 안 해. 이거 없지? 네? 봤지?
선해.
This movie was directed by Kim Joo-ho, who also directed The Grand Heist, and it starts off pretty suspenseful and serious, and then gets very comical, and then concludes again on a more serious side. One thing to know before going into the movie, it's very highly unrealistic, so keep that in mind. Don't expect anything that's like too realistic, but it's these unrealistic scenes that gives it its comedic element, but it somehow makes it seem realistic and like as if it could actually occur. The story is loosely based on true events, so they give a depiction of how things could have played out. I'll get a little bit deeper into this later on. Although the movie is set in a historical time, don't expect any like serious historical lessons. If you do end up watching this, go into it with a very light heart and think of it as watching a comedic film. Don't expect any historical lessons, and it's definitely unlike other historical Korean movies that you might have watched. As I mentioned before, the movie is a creative depiction of how things could have played out in history. For example, there's historical records stating that a tree moved on its own so that it would lay out the path for the king to pass. The movie portrays this as these jesters pulling on a string connected to the tree so that the tree would be lifted and the king would be able to pass by. There's a lot of these like creative ideas of how situations could have played out. I won't reveal any more. I only revealed the tree one because it's in the trailers. But yeah, there's a lot of these like creative explanations of how these historical events that we don't know for sure how it happened. It gives like a explanation of that. Let's take a look at what I found the good parts about the movie were to be. The cast members were all familiar faces. The movie stars Jin-Woong, Son-Jun, Hee-Soon, Chang-Suk, Seul-Gi, Yoon, and Min-Suk. And all of these actors, if you're a fan of Korean movie or Korean dramas, and if you've seen a lot of Korean productions, you've probably seen these actors and actresses at least once in other productions. They didn't give their best performances in this, but because of their sheer experience, they were able to pull off pretty good performances. Now let's take a look at the bad parts about the movie. Like I said in the beginning, the movie is very, very highly unrealistic. There's like a scene where they're like flashing lights, and like, come on, light bulbs back in that time? Those were most definitely non-existent. It's like these things that makes it so unrealistic and didn't make sense. But then again, I guess these like nonsense elements could be seen as the humor or the comedic approach to the movie. Personally, it doesn't match my humor points, and I would say like the comedy is going to be very divided amongst people. Also, the movie tries way too hard to be funny and way too hard to be emotional. Some of like the comedic scenes are like very cheesy and over the top, like a character repeatedly pees in his pants. Come on, like how childish can you get? A lot of the jokes are like very outdated and very juvenile and not something you would want to see in 2019 comedy. And maybe because of it trying to be too funny and trying to be too emotional, I felt like it lost its identity. You can't really tell like what it was trying to accomplish. Like, are you trying to be a comedy, or are you trying to be a drama, or are you trying to like give like historical lessons, or what exactly is the identity of this movie? It doesn't do any of like comedy or drama or like suspense like full on right. So it felt very unorganized and as if it was trying to do too much, where it should have actually focused on like one or two things and gotten those two things down right. However, I will say though that once it stopped trying to be too funny and once the story developed a little bit more, it did actually get a little bit more interesting. And the final unfortunate thing that I found about the movie was that if you don't have background knowledge about the events that the movie is about, so like if you don't have like the historical knowledge, I would say that you're going to have a pretty hard time understanding what's going on. Like I myself didn't fully understand what was going on because I didn't have the full understanding of the situation. It would have been a lot more helpful if they gave like a background explanation of the story. Like for example, in the Battle Road to Victory, they gave like an explanation in text in the beginning of the movie describing what the situation is like and just giving like a background story before going actually deeper into the movie. I think that they should have done that with this as well because like I found myself trying to put pieces of the story, like puzzle pieces together, like trying to figure out what's going on. To summarize, the movie is very unrealistic and the comedy is over the top a lot of the time. It tries to force the laughters and the tears out of the audience. However, I do appreciate that it took a different and a new approach to history and tried to explain how history played out. The humor points are going to be very divided. I personally didn't really like it, but I know a lot of people actually did. I just wish that it would have focused on like comedy or history, like one of those two things more instead of being greedy and trying to do too much. I would give Jesters, the Game Changers, a ticket price value of $7. If you're looking for like a light comedy or if it's available on like Netflix, I would say it's worth the watch, but it's definitely not something that you need to watch in theaters. Keep in mind the big things that I mentioned, that it's unrealistic, that the comedy can get over the top, and it tries to force the humor and the tears out of its audience. Just keep those three things in mind before going into it, and I think you'll have an enjoyable watch. Thank you everyone for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you do end up watching and if you enjoyed it, or if you have any other comments regarding the movie. Be sure to like this video if you like my reviews and you want to see more. Let me know down in the comments what movie I should review next. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next review.